Hi, everybody. Welcome to our first ever 19 Blocks Talks. Today, we'll be talking about my favorite asset class, hotels and hospitality. My name is Andrew Vecchio. I'm a co-founder and managing partner at 19 Blocks, and I'm here alongside my business partner, one of my best friends, Michael Lohan. Mike and I go way back to our college days, which I won't say how long ago that was, but long enough. And I'd love to pass it back to Mike and have him.
Yeah, appreciate it. Again, thanks guys for being here. Really excited to have our kind of first 19 Blocks talks, where we really want to just kind of engage, I think, the best in class operators and investors across all the asset classes we work on. That kind of brings us into the food groups that we really kind of get excited about. We're sitting here about hospitality, multifamily and industrial and office are also kind of asset classes that we really worked on our past lives, but as you guys know, as we've been talking with you guys, we kind of gravitate quite well with the hospitality asset class. So that's really a bit on us. We really like to have a bit of a domestic focus with our international reach, with a lot of our international capital relationships that are looking to sink money behind operators like yourselves. And yeah, again, just really want to create this discussion around kind of how the pandemic has shifted your focus, how it's kind of uprooted some of what hospitality has seen, but as what we're seeing now in a short while, now that the vaccine is kind of rolled out, you guys are certainly seemingly back in stride with all of your efforts. So I guess we could kind of go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. As Mike said, these segments are really designed in a conscious manner to create meaningful conversations in commercial real estate with what we think are some of the coolest people in commercial real estate. So if you guys get invited onto our show and then to our talks, consider yourself among the best. So I'm really excited today to talk about COVID and how it's impacted you guys, hospitality at large, and love to start with some introductions. On our panel today, we have Allie, who's the Chief Development Officer for Virgin Hotels. We have Marissa Ballan, who's the VP of Development for Citizen M. And we have Abhay, who's the SVP of SH Hotels and Resorts. So why don't we start with some brief introductions about yourselves and your company and kind of your mission, vision, values. And we'll start with Allie, who just went on. Yeah, she is.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm Allie Hope. I'm, as you mentioned, Chief Development Officer for Virgin Hotels. For those that don't know, Virgin Hotels is a lifestyle hotel brand that was launched about 10 years ago and part of the Virgin Group. So we're owned by Richard Branson, who I'm sure many of you followed as he went off to space on Sunday for the first space tourism. So right now we're focused on building hotels in North America and Europe. Maybe one day, and I have been asked if someone could have the rights to build the first hotel in space, which we have yet to breach. But thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining, and we'll pass the buck to Marissa for introduction.
Hi, guys. Thanks for inviting me. So great to see all of you. My name is Marissa Ballan. I oversee the West Coast region for Citizen M on the acquisitions and development front. Citizen M is a revolutionary boutique hotel brand that has reinvented the hotel space so that we can deliver kind of an affordable or a luxury hotel experience at an affordable price. So our brand mantra is affordable luxury for the people.
Awesome. Thanks. And Abhay?
Hey, guys. Andrew, Michael, thanks for having me, ladies. I'm Abhay Bakaya. I work with SH Hotels, oversee development for us as we look to grow both within the US but also overseas. And across our three brands, which are One Hotels, Baccarat, and Treehouse. And, SH founded by Barry Sternlicht, well known as a real pioneer and innovator in the industry. And, it's really his vision that is behind the brands and sort of what we're trying to achieve with them today. And fun fact, I'm also an astrophysicist. So Allie, if you ever need any advice with that space hotel, let me know.
I could have used some help this weekend.
I appreciate the context, everyone. I know we kind of just lightly broached the subject of differentiators, but if you wouldn't mind, I guess in the same order, Allie, could you kind of tell us what the lifestyle components of Virgin's kind of doing separately as kind of a value prop in the market?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I think when we set out to start Virgin Hotels, you looked at the landscape of what it meant to be lifestyle. And I think a lot of what makes it lifestyle is it stems from the culture of the founder, right? So whether it's heavy nightlife and F&B or whatever the positioning may be, Richard as our founder is entrepreneurship, innovation, technology, and entertainment. Right. So we really defined where Virgin Hotels was going to fit into this landscape. It really focused on just that. So heavily entertainment focused, comfortable entertainment, less the nightlife, red rope type of nightclubs, and more live music, some DJ sets, kind of music throughout the hotels and all the different areas, plus entrepreneurship panels and talks. Think like mini TED Talks on site, and ways to kind of bring what Richard talks about and kind of pushes globally into the heart of the hotel. So that I would say from a lifestyle perspective, like we've really honed in on what's Richard bringing to the table and like what does that mean through Virgin's ethos, and then technology, a huge part of what we've focused on from day one, which is creating using technology and leveraging what's out there to put the customer in control of their journey. So ordering, room service anywhere in the hotel, for example, through the app, check in, check out, pick your rooms, like everything that now we're seeing, frankly, in 2020 become really, really important. And I think historically has taken a long time for people to adopt, has always kind of been in the foundation of Virgin Hotels as much as it has any other Virgin business, really. Is the technology aspect and offering.
Great. Thank you. I guess, Marissa, anybody that's kind of jumped inside the lobby of one of your Citizen M hotels can right from the kind of get-go feel the ecosystem and the design aspects to it. But aside from those elements, is there really a differentiator that you guys kind of circle going into these projects?
Yeah. I'm actually going to kind of build off of something that Allie said about hotels really being part of the vision of the founder and tied to the founder's background and experience. So our founder also founded a fashion brand called Mex. This is kind of in the early 2000s. He ended up selling the brand, and he was inspired to create a hotel brand specifically for his fashion designers who were traveling around the world. These were frequent travelers who really loved style and design. At the same time, he identified that there was this democratization of design and art and technology happening. Everyone has a smartphone, for example. Everyone has Instagram. So he decided to reinvent the hotel and kind of democratize the luxury hotel experience and bring a luxury hotel experience to everyone. So he, the way that he ended up doing that was eliminating all of the things that people don't really use in luxury hotels that frequent travelers don't use. Bellman, for example, turn down service. If you're traveling all of the time, that's not something that's important. But what is important, king size bed, really great sheets, great art and design and style and activated public space. And so kind of by giving our guests everything that they need and but taking away things that they don't need, we've been able to deliver this luxury experience at an affordable price and kind of deliver on our brand promise, which I spoke about before, affordable luxury for the people.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate that. We certainly can tell that there's definitely some fashion in the DNA of your company. So that's really interesting to learn. I had no idea.
Yeah, I often work down at the Citizen M Bowery. It's a nice place to pop by. And they're like, "Are you a hotel guest?" I'm just here. Don't worry about me.
I am so glad to hear that. I'm so glad I think we'll talk about this later, but I think the use of our public spaces, the activation, the use of it as a third space is something that's really important. So I'm so glad to hear that you're using that space in that way.
Yeah, it's great. And Abhay, we'll save you for last, gentlemen. Abhay was giving me a hard time for putting him last, but we gotta let Blake go first. So, Abhay, would love for you to talk about SH and obviously your properties, and feel free to.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, we'll not hold it against you. But yeah, I think for us, One Hotels, is a big focus and sort of our core driver for growth at the moment. And Barry Sternlicht, as it's known, founded W Hotels. Really created that brand back in the late '90s, and when it was extremely relevant, sort of ahead of its time. And with One Hotels, it's similar in that he now created this brand, which really, again, sort of ahead of its time in kind of redefining what lifestyle or luxury lifestyle sort of looks like today, and what people and travelers are looking for in their experience, right? So the focus on sustainability, the focus on daylight and day life, and activating all the spaces in a different way, and what sort of materials are used, and how to engage guests, and really kind of integrate those aspects into your stay, and just into your knowledge as you think about the world as a whole. So we really view the brand and the company really as a platform for change, and a lot of that DNA weaves through what we do, even at Treehouse and Baccarat, and just our culture in general. Baccarat being clearly, ultra luxury, the name stemming from the Crystal Company that's been around 250 plus years, but also lifestyle, just in a different format. And then Treehouse, our newest brand, which really has its own character and flair, and is really meant to bring out your childhood self. Colorful, playful, nostalgic. Again, a sense of community, a sense of place, and something that we're spending a lot of time on and in defining as our first few stuff to pop up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing, everybody. That's a great intro. To start off kind of the conversation, we want to talk about everybody's favorite subject so far, which is COVID. Jokes aside, we're all very happy and grateful that it's kind of waning into the night now. And we've seen a resurgence in travel and leisure, and both personally and for business purposes. So we would love to open the conversation. We'll start with Allie again in terms of COVID and its impact on your hotel's operations, and what that meant for you, and kind of some of the lessons that you're going to take away. And I'm sure a lot of the boutique owners, hotel operators out there, as well as the larger brands, can glean some insights from you guys.
Yeah, no, this time last year we were in a very different mindset. But now, where we sit coming out of this, I think that some hotels and some bookings are outpacing 2019 levels. Really what that means for us is that this kind of urban lifestyle has proven out, or urban resort, right, has proven out to be a really good thing because of the F&B. So like Marissa said, having the F&B in their spaces, it's given locals a staycation or something to do, for at least like our Dallas hotel that gave us some demand and revenue during this time last year. And that's continued to play out. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that both the technology, by enabling customers to not interact with employees, and check in, check out, like I said, order food anywhere, order food to the room, and not to sign a bill. You really could go through the Virgin Hotel experience without any interaction. That's played out really well. So leaning into that technology in a post-COVID world, and we're continuing to develop new generations of that platform. We're also, putting more importance, probably than you would historically in the hotel industry, on these other outlets. So, for example, our Dallas hotel has a rooftop pool that drove a lot of our demand during the pandemic. And so now coming out of it, it continues to be really popular. We have other types of business coming back, but making sure, many times when you develop these hotels, you're thinking to yourself, okay, the bulk of my flow through comes from my rooms and my rate. And so that's important. But many times you can talk yourself out of all the other stuff, right? That's a little harder to underwrite. It's a little harder to value. It's harder to get your lenders and your equity partners convinced that it's going to drive the bottom line. But I think now, after this past year's experience, we're seeing that we have a little bit more to stand on to prove that out. It proved it out when there was no other corporate demand, and it's continuing to go that way when our customers continue to mix business and pleasure. And the Virgin customer has always been that way. So when we looked at launching Virgin Hotels, it's always been about kind of this mixing business and pleasure, which is why we had these outlets in the first place. But now I feel like as a development person, right, building the brand, pushing for growth and doing more deals, I find that that's an easier conversation to have, because now we have some proof of what happens and really isolating that demand. So I think you'll see us do more and more of that. The resort hotels, again, like the resort markets have proved out really well. And this was really like a tale of two worlds, or three or four, if you looked at extended stay versus group urban city center, urban resort, and then luxury and kind of the Sun Belt. So you really looked at different segments and how they perform differently. So we'll continue to grow as we did before. Like I said, I think we have a little bit more now meat on the bones. And then one other thing that we've added to what we're doing, and I know SH already has some, I think there's sites on this as well, but is the residential. So for rent residential is something that actually has been added to a number of our existing pipeline hotels. And we'll continue, I think, to see more of that, given if we look across asset classes, multifamily is in a shortage. It's an area we think that we've created a product for in the past, and now is the right time to roll that out. And so we're seeing some branded rental product added to our pipeline.
Awesome. Marissa?
So COVID, I think, I'm sure all of you guys experienced the same thing, right? We have city center hotels. It was a challenging time. Thankfully we're long-term real estate owners. So we kind of took the time to take a step back, go back to our roots, and rethink some of the things that we had been doing from a guest-centric perspective. It gave us the opportunity to revisit some of the, some of our standards, and reinvent them a little bit. So, two examples I think I can think of are, from an operational perspective, we went from having a really extravagant breakfast buffet every day to kind of bento boxes. Right now, our guests seem to really enjoy the bento boxes, right? They didn't want a breakfast buffet during COVID. Nobody wanted that. So I think it's one of these things that we'll see if it stays around. That's maybe one of these changes that people are going to really enjoy, having a little bento box, with a couple of buffet items that they can choose from and take it away, rather than rummaging around on the breakfast buffet every day. So that's kind of one just operational change that, we'll see if it sticks around, but it's something that we did implement during COVID because of guest demands during COVID. The second, similar to Allie, is technology, and this whole contactless experience. If you've ever stayed at one of our hotels, we are very technology driven. The entire guest room is controlled with an iPad. You can turn on the lights, you can open and close the blinds. So absolutely everything is controlled with the iPad. What we spent COVID doing was really perfecting and relaunching our app. So we have a fully contactless experience now. So you can walk into the hotel, check in on your phone, go right to your room, control absolutely everything in your room on your phone. You can turn on the lights, you can turn off the lights, you can set the alarm that then also turns on the lights, open and close the blinds. So, so we again took this guest demand for a contactless experience, and then we've been able to translate that into something, into a new amenity that I think guests really appreciate and is probably going to stay with us. Certainly, I think it's a faster adoption than we had seen in the past.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing both. And Abhay, you want to finish this off?
Yeah, sure. I think for us, what turned out to be the biggest, lesson and benefit by the end of it was figuring out how to keep the hotels open. And to the extent they were closed, how soon, being able to open them as soon as possible. And that helped us in a couple of different ways. It was challenging, of course, to try to figure out, how do you break even at a hotel when you're running, 20% occupancy. So a lot of it was trying to kind of rework how to operate in such a sort of stress test. But we were able to do that and face a lot of those headwinds. And I think as things have now opened up, the benefit's just been that we've been so visible to guests who are looking to travel, right? So in terms of our booking pace, in terms of kind of where we're seeing ourselves perform against a lot of the competition, we're seeing ourselves with, have a significant sort of head start in a sense. Our RevPAR index numbers are through the roof at the moment, just as other brands in some cases sort of still work through their strategies of reopening. And I think that's given us a chance to build a lot of loyalty with our guests, but also a range of new clientele where we can kind of showcase what we do. And a lot of that also ties to just building trust with the customers, right? So a lot of the initiatives that we put in place immediately when things did lock down and making guests feel safe, whether it's showing them videos of exactly how we're going about our COVID protocols, to putting in some permanent measures and being pretty transparent with it. So both things sort of coupled together has helped us, and we have a pretty positive outlook now. I mean, I think when things shut down last year, the industry consensus was that it would take till 2024, 25 for things to kind of hit 19 levels. I think at some point that kind of trimmed down to 23, 24. And right now, again, I think staffing's a bit of an issue, and that it's something I think we're all still trying to get to terms with. But that aside, we're sort of hitting 2019 levels across most of our hotels today. So I think next year is looking really strong, and hopefully that just continues. But one of the things Allie touched on as well, I think rate integrity has been important. Just kind of making sure we maintain where we're positioning ourselves. And that also ties into all the ancillary services, right? So making sure that the guests staying with you are also likely to spend, at the F&B outlets and the other amenities that you have. So those are some of the focus areas that we've kind of had for the last few months.
And if I may add something, Abhay talked about the trust. And I think all of us sitting here, we have these lifestyle brands, and you think about one of our competitors is also shadow inventory, right? Homes that are put on the market, or apartments and things like that. And I think it's interesting because while that segment, right, as we see that Airbnb IPO and why we see that segment did very, very well during COVID, I think what's really important is to notice that people want that experience, but they also want a brand they can trust, right? And what Abhay said, like building that trust with their customer. One of the things that we've had in the works for a while at Virgin that we rolled out in the UK and it's rolling out in the US is a group-wide loyalty program and points program called Virgin Red. So we identified that our customer base is more inclined now more than ever to stick with a brand they trust, right? They know it's clean, they know what they're going to get, they know what to expect. So they still want that bridge, like what all of our hotels offer, all of us on this panel, but again, like maybe they're not ready to take the plunge and take the risk of an Airbnb. And so where we can really solve that need is by nature that they have all these different experiences and things they're opting into, reward them for that, but also give them something consistent and trustworthy.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting insight. We weren't going to touch upon the Airbnb portion of this with their IPO, but I think it is important to note like how it's affected your industry, how you're kind of meeting those headwinds head on. But I think, as you just alluded to, it's all around the trust. You go to, I mean, even as a super host on an Airbnb, you hope that you're going to get a good experience. I think you're buying into a brand, you're buying into what these consumers know about you guys as a lifestyles company first and foremost. I guess that brings us to the next question that we kind of have. As these headwinds have kind of been met with COVID, and there's certainly some confident momentums around travel, how have you guys approached brand expansion or new markets? I know, Allie, you alluded to the Sun Belt. I think there has been a race, certainly from our capital that we represent, to get to the southeast of the Sun Belt. Not that this is new to you guys, you all have a footprint in these markets, but has there been a concerted effort to expand key count in specific markets, if any? I guess we could start with you, Allie.
Sure. Yeah. So our market focus hasn't changed much over the last year. We've always had the mindset we want to build a Virgin hotel where there's some cultural relevance, cultural significance, and pulse that we can tap into. So Nashville is one of the first markets we identified in 2010 as a target, and I will say that was a hard sell back then as to why we were doing that. Coming from a a REIT background where I did acquisitions, it was always like top 7 MSAs, and that was it, right? But really, when you look at who's coming and what your customer wants, like they're going to Nashville, they're going to New Orleans, they're traveling to Napa, they're traveling to these markets where maybe you do San Francisco and Napa, right? You do New York City and some of the periphery markets, London and surrounding markets. I think that it, ties into the labor market as well. So while the customer you identify, they're traveling to these places that have some kind of cultural richness, right? Have some identity. And so we find that there's demand there, and the right sized hotel, obviously. Like if I was doing like our 1,500 room Las Vegas hotel doesn't fit everywhere. Like that's specific to Las Vegas. So I think it depends what product you're building. But I think it's just a market that has a real richness and fabric that you can tap into and marry your brand with that local market. The biggest thing when you think about expansion, like let's say New York Hamptons, for example, right, is the labor market. So a lot of these, if you don't have the big hotel that's getting the rate in the urban city center historically, or let's say South Beach, for if you're not having that to then kind of share some expenses, because really at the end of the day, every single one of our hotels, while they can be fabulous experientially, they have to drive a profit, right? They have to be profitable, or else we're not going to be building very many of them successfully. So sometimes you do need to have those considerations of marrying some of your hotels near each other to share expenses, and especially now with the shift in kind of the employment base, which is, I think we're all figuring that out as it evolves, but that's become, I think, top of mind. If you list 3 issues we're dealing with today, that would definitely be one of those that would be on the list.
Certainly. Well, we're seeing job growth in a lot of the markets that we're looking for with you guys. So I wonder, you forecasted this, like you said, Nashville, probably choice parts of Texas since 2010, 2011, 12, and I'm sure you're going to do so moving forward. But Marissa, how has this kind of impacted you guys in terms of AOR?
So it's interesting that both of you guys kind of mentioned the Sun Belt and employment growth and focus on that. We, unlike most hotel companies, we're real estate investors. We actually own and invest in our real estate on behalf of our shareholders. So we look at our investments very much with a real estate investor hat. And of course, A+ real estate is always A+ real estate. We're always looking for opportunities in primary markets and to cluster them, as Allie mentioned, so that you can have one chief engineer that covers 2 or 3, right? We have 2 hotels in New York. We'd love to do more hotels in New York. We have, one property under development, one nearly open in LA, for example, and likewise Seattle and San Francisco, Miami. We have multiple hotel clusters so that we can leverage our operating model in those cities. So that hasn't changed from a COVID perspective. I think A+ cities are still A+ cities, and A+ real estate is still A+ real estate. I think what has changed is certainly our focus on some of these secondary cities. And what we look for as we look at real estate investing in those cities is number of startups, relocation of tech companies, availability of talent, investment in infrastructure. So those are the things that come first. And then you see the growth in those cities, right? I mean, that's really the reason why Austin is Austin and the reason why Nashville is Nashville. So I think, of course, those are the cities, but those are the things that we look at as we look at what's the next city. Is this a place that, from an infrastructure perspective, is supportive of business growth and of in-migration trends and of employment growth, and then therefore leisure and business travel trends. So that's kind of what we've been looking for when it comes to the Sunbelt cities and some of these, the newer markets that might not have been on, our first expansion list of the gateway, coastal gateway cities. But, as we're continuing to grow, those are really the metrics that we look at to figure out what the next city is.
Are there any not to disclose your secret sauce, but
Yeah.
are there any of those periphery little nooks in the gateway cities that kind of caught your eye?
So in terms of outside of gateway cities or in gateway cities?
Those that may have been on your
Secondary, tertiary.
secondary, tertiary, something on the periphery that wasn't always really where you guys thought you might end up, but you're just reading the trends and something you really want to be.
So two cities that we really like right now, Austin and Nashville, I think are the obvious ones, right? Everyone wants to be in Austin, Austin and Nashville. Another city that I really like a lot is Denver, right? I mean, that is a city that has invested a tremendous amount in infrastructure. They expanded their light rail. They expanded the airport. It's a city that has a great lifestyle, which is attractive to employees, and then at the same time attractive to leisure travelers. You have a university nearby, so there's there's talent that you can draw from, a talent pool. So that's a city that I think is really interesting. Just for one example. I think San Diego is another one of those, but I think those are the types of cities that we're looking at.
Yeah, we're hearing more and more cities like Boise, Salt Lake City. I mean, not just in hospitality and hotels, but for industrial and multifamily. A lot of the capital that's looking to place money in those high growth markets. Abhay, you want to finish us off and talk a bit about your approach?
Yeah, sure. And similar in some ways. I think Ali described it well in terms of sort of for us having a global, but at the same time a very local outlook. Trying to find sites and also partners to work with who are really passionate about our brands and kind of how that integrates into their own vision for their projects. And so we'll look at cities which again our strategy has kind of remained pretty steady even through COVID, in that we intentionally opened our first brand hotels in New York, Miami, LA, and our first signings in Europe were in London and Paris to hit some of those key gateway cities up front. And that helps us kind of build a base, an operating base that we can grow from. So, from the next 1 to 12 months, we're opening 1 hotel in San Francisco, in Toronto, Nashville, Hanalei Bay in Hawaii. So that's given us a platform that we're really leveraging now. But yeah, I think, there's the key gateway cities, there's sort of the emerging gateway cities as I think of them, Toronto's and Melbourne's of the world, which, have a lot of that great infrastructure and quality of life. And I think will only continue to that sort of upward trends. And yeah, I think, for us, it varies a little bit by brand also. With Baccarat, we're often looking at, the best locations in a given city. It's not a brand we're trying to get to, 100 or 200 hotels. We're fairly selective, often mixed use projects. And, something Ali was referring to, we do branded residential with Baccarat, with 1 hotels also. But often, that brand value is driving, premiums to the residential piece, which is something the developers look for. And then with Treehouse, it's a little bit more of a bandwidth in the sense that we could do 2 or 3 tree houses in a city like New York or London, but we really want to be in some creative parts of the city, right? Like a Brooklyn in New York, Lohan in Denver, Marissa. Spots where you kind of become the hotel for that neighborhood and kind of can drive off that communal feel. So it often just depends by brand, by location, but we try to, get pretty specific with what the vision of the project ultimately is. With 1 hotels, we definitely like to have a natural element at the doorstep, whether it's a park or a river, etc., that we can, again, kind of weave into this.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think, all your guys' perspectives how you approach hospitality at large is really interesting. I love all your brands. You guys are great people too. So I appreciate you guys talking about that and sharing your perspectives. We have our teams on the ground and our local partners around the country sourcing deals and sourcing opportunities. We love talking about opportunities with you guys, and I'm sure we'll get one closed with you guys soon enough. But I just wanted to, thank you guys all and really take the last few minutes to kind of look forward, future forward. and talk about what you think hospitality, and Allie alluded to it a bit in the beginning. It kind of stole my thunder. I was going to surprise you guys with the space hospitality question, but not so far out there. But how do you envision iterating on hospitality and keeping your customers actively engaged, and really how it integrates into our modern society? We'll leave a few minutes for that. Why don't we start with Abhay, and we'll go back around the circle again.
There you go, Abhay. You get to go first.
Yeah, totally thrown me off now. Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting, right? Travel's coming back. I think in many ways, the purpose of travel and kind of what it means to people always stays the same, right? It's exciting, it's sort of adventurous, and I think it's great to see that continue. I think, like I alluded to earlier, I think that it's coming back quicker and than we all expected. There's a ton of leisure travel at the moment, clearly, which is really what's kept us going, and it'll be interesting to see if some of that sort of tapers or if that momentum again, continues. But we're also seeing corporate travel come back. We're seeing smaller group business come back. One of the things we did, and others may have as well, was intentionally did our best not to cancel weddings, social events, etc. when COVID hit. So a lot of those bookings are kind of have been pushed out, and that business is still there. So that'll again help us bridge the gap a little bit. But I think they're all positive signs. I think to some extent there may be some change in the way people travel or the experiences that they seek. And I think in many ways things go back to somewhat of what they used to be. But in a way it's great, right? Change is good. I think it made everyone rethink things a little bit, and but overall, I think that the industry is in a good place.
Let's pass to Marissa. You want to go ahead?
Sure. So I agree with Abhay. From a COVID perspective, our hotels are seeing sold out nights. Are certainly in many of the cities where we have hotels. I don't know the last time you guys have flown. I was on an airplane on Sunday. Flights are packed. Airports are packed. It's not just speculation that travel is coming back. It's coming back. So I think we can all comfortably say that the COVID recovery is underway. From that perspective, obviously the future is looking bright, and I think we'll see hotel performance recover far earlier than was previously anticipated. In terms of trends and just the future of hospitality, generally speaking, I don't see that changing that much post-COVID. I think a lot of the things that we saw as trends are going to continue. So one of the things was something, Andrew, we spoke about earlier, the idea of connecting with people and the idea of the third space and the use of the hotel in that way. So right now it's just not enough for a hotel to be just a place for you to sleep that's clean. They need to be a place where people are connecting and have energized and activated public spaces that people can use in multiple different ways. They can go and work, have a drink, eat. And I think this idea of kind of an energized, activated, multifaceted kind of town square center, and using the public space in a hotel in that way and allowing people to connect with other people is really what the future of hospitality is. And that's I think going to fundamentally be the differentiator, is who can do that and how do you create a space that feels active, special, and allows you to feel connected with the city and with other travelers.
Awesome. Allie?
Yeah, no, I'd echo what Marissa said. I mean, travel's back, right? I mean, it's people are group. There's a natural kind of cadence to when things are booked and how long it takes to get there. But I think it's back. I think the urban city centers, like it just depends. Like it really just depends. But I think for the space that we're in, lifestyle, it's definitely coming back. And I agree with Marissa. It's going to come back faster. It is coming back faster than anyone predicted. For our future, historically, we've probably invested just under about $100 million in real estate. to grow Virgin Hotels. And I think in the future, I think we'll continue to selectively invest in deals. I also think, we'll do more conversions. What all of us here on this panel have new, fresh, well-designed product. But if you think about the landscape of hospitality, there's a lot of product out there that just is in a way functionally obsolete, right? It does not make sense for the consumer that we're talking about today, which is the growing consumer base. And so I think you'll see, and Marissa made it a little different because you do your rooms and your product is so specific, but you guys have, found a really good way to get there, right? With modular and whatnot. But I think you'll see more conversions from our end. Still some ground up, but selectively. I think we want to do what we can to kind of repurpose product that's already in the market that needs a fresh take on it. So we'll do that. We've also retooled some operational, perspectives and what we're pushing. We brought in a new CEO in February of this year who has an operational background with Montage and Pendry, so kind of this luxury lifestyle space. So I think from a Virgin perspective, we'll be more in that luxury lifestyle positioning. More like, one hotels, I'd say we're side by side for sure. And then at the end of the day, I mean, really what we're all doing is creating a platform to connect people, right? And I always looked at our hotels as kind of a stage, right? We build it, we design it, we've created the stage, and now it's about the employees and the people that come that create the scenes. And so I think we'll see more of this heightened focus on, is this a great place for people to connect? Have we figured out all the different pain points and all the touch points, or lack thereof, I guess, touch points for the consumer to have a seamless, enjoyable, relaxing journey? I think it's been a really stressful year for everyone, and to find, to be able to re-engage, but in like a very relaxed, comfortable way is, I believe, the new norm and the new need.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because it really resonates with Mike and I know I can speak for us together. We often have similar thoughts, and we're building more than just a company, more than just a brokerage, more than just a capital advisory firm. We're building a culture and a community around commercial real estate, right? And that goes to one of my old mentors, but he wasn't a mentor. I never met him. Steve Jobs. When I worked for Apple, he built Apple around not building products for people, but really understanding the people and what they needed, and then reverse engineering it. And that's kind of what we're doing. And it seems like you guys are doing in a similar fashion around hospitality. And I'd love to, just leave a few minutes for open dialogue if you guys want to say anything else. But, I know I'm very grateful. I know Mike is too, for you guys joining us today. And we'll see Abhay tomorrow for dinner, I think, right, Abhay? And we'd love to continue talking to your brands and hopefully get some deals across the finish line. And also, as we start to spin up more content series and stuff like this, hopefully we can get outside of the camera and outside of the cubicles, and we'll start to do some more conference and in-person stuff together. We'd love to welcome you guys back for that.
Yeah. I'll also add that I'd love to also add, we're talking about the futures of your brands. I think your brands respectively have great stewards of what the future holds, with you guys holding the positions that you do. And from our side of the table, commercial real estate, kind of placing debt and equity throughout the capital stack, isn't always the most interesting of things. So we definitely do appreciate the human element and the human touch that you guys bring to your firms. You make our jobs fun. And we really appreciate your time.
Thank you both.
Thank you, guys.
You guys.
Thanks, guys, so much.
you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.